Screencast for cutting on action. Okay, looking at this folder here, we're going to go over the file management, folder structure, project creation, editing, and export. So, first things first, you should have a master folder for every project. Okay, so your last one was your name _ sequence project. This one is going to be your name _ cut on action. Excuse me. Okay, when I open this up, all right, I'm just going to have you do 3 subfolders. B-roll, you should have your B-roll in here. Premiere project, this should be empty. Exports, this should be empty. You should look at column view. So this icon, column view, desktop, just Fabiano cut on action, subfolders. All right, and this is where we should be at starting today. So you're going to open up Premiere. I already have it open. You should have your home page here. We're going to hit New Project, and we're going to give it a name. Everything should match the master folder. So my name, cut on action, project location, choose, desktop. We go left to right, just like we read, cut on action, and I'm creating a Premiere project, so it's going to go in the Premiere project folder. I hit choose. I'm not done until I hit create at the bottom. All right. I've now created a project. I have all of my windows. I can choose my workspaces here. I like the editing workspace. This is a review. So workspaces, you can choose whatever workspace you're comfortable with. Essentials. I teach and talk about the editing workspace, and I like to resize my windows a little bit. I've got my source panel, my project panel, my program panel, my timeline panel. I've got some tools, audio meters, and then my effects panel over here. All right, I can shrink this down now. We're not using effects right now. Okay, so a bunch of different ways I can import media. I can click this button. I can navigate to my Finder. Either way, I want to take the whole folder in here. So it doesn't matter how you do it. I'm going to hit Import Media, Desktop, Cut on Action. I want to import the entire B-roll folder, not individual clips. I want the entire folder. So I just have the folder highlighted. I hit Import, and boom, I've got all of my shots imported. Okay, it keeps the folder structure. All right, now I need to make a new sequence. I right click, new item, new sequence. It needs to be 1080p 2997, and then I got to give it a name. Boom. Now I've got my sequence. It's named right here. I've got all my video tracks and that kind of thing. All right, so now for the editing part. Here, the in point or the out point of shot A should match the in point of shot B and things like that. This is old video of Media Tech 2 students doing a chase scene, but we have to cut on the proper action and or cutaway. So there's a bunch of shots in here. I'm not going to go through every shot because you guys are responsible for 5 shots. Okay, so I click on my first shot here, and I've got this wide shot. Okay, there's not a whole lot to this shot. All right, it's just setting the scene, and so I'm going to hit in 1, 2, 3, hit O, and I've got this almost 3-second shot right here, and that's my establisher shot. I'm going to drag it down. All right, now can't really see the clip on my timeline all that well. I'm going to hit the plus button on my keyboard so I can kind of zoom in on my clips here. All right, I actually also want my V1 and A1. I want these two V1 and A1s to be stuck here. All right, I don't know why mine defaults to moving it up, but when I lay this stuff down, this is where I want it to go. All right, then I can take my playhead and I put it at the end of the clip. All right, the out point here doesn't matter a whole lot as long as these two people are still kind of typing at their computer and their hands are in roughly the same shape. So let's take a look. That's a medium shot here, but it doesn't really move 30 degrees. I don't love that. Maybe I can kind of cut to this. Actually, you know what? We're just going to start. I've changed my mind. And this is just because of the way that they shot this. We're just going to start on this kind of medium shot instead. It's still wide enough. Boom. Okay. All right. Chromebook is in hand. It is still floating above the desk. I'm going to hit my out point here. I'm going to take it down. And now I've got this clip here. And if I go to the end of it, all right, the Chromebook is just floating barely above the desk. Okay, so what I don't want to do is I don't want to start this next clip with the Chromebook in frame, because it's not like, look where it is over here. It's not in the frame. It's not down by the book bag. So I need to go to my source panel, and I'm going to drag this clip backwards. The Chromebook is out of frame. I hit my I here, my in here, and it's in the book bag. Her hand is on the Chromebook in the book bag. I'm going to hit O for out, and I'm going to drag that down. And I watch the cut. It makes sense. I'm cutting on the action. It works. This is the same angle, so this is going to be a jump cut. Okay, so here's a bad example of the 30-degree rule. They didn't move 30 degrees. So if I were to use this shot and put it down, it's going to create a jump cut. See, the camera never moves. That's why it needs to move more than 30 degrees. So I can't use that shot. I now have another book bag. Let's see what else we got here. There's a Chromebook going in that book bag. And again, they're students. They made some mistakes here. All right. I think I'll go to the other book bag. So they're packing up for class. I'll drag that down. There's the other book bag. I'm okay with that. The issue here now is this shot, her hands are on the book bag, and if I go back to my shot in the source panel here, her hands are not on the book bag. So we got to try to find a way to bridge the gap here. So what I'm going to do now is, in my timeline, I'm going to trim this clip, and I'm going to drag the end of the clip out as far as it'll go. And if you'll notice, you can kind of see what's going to happen. I want her hands leaving the frame. Okay? Now that her hands have left the frame, in the next clip, where I go back up here, I can set an endpoint, because now it doesn't matter where her hands are, and they pull out their phones. And they're looking at their phones. All right? This is from a few years ago. All right, and I'm going to go forward. Here's another. This shot does move. This shot does move 30 degrees. So I'm going to scroll in my timeline. They're looking at their phones. Okay, so at the end of this shot, the two girls are looking at their phones. And so at the beginning of the next shot, what do they need to be doing? They need to be looking at their phones. So I go over to my source panel here. This is the next shot in my timeline. And they're looking at their phones, so I can set my endpoint there. She grabs her book bag, and whoops, didn't mean to zoom in like that. She grabs her book bag. If I go to the next shot, let's see, is it going to move 30 degrees? We'll see. Let's see where she is at the end of this shot. So her book bag, she's still facing the table, lunchbox in hand. So if I go to my source panel, I need to find a point to where her lunchbox is in hand. We don't really have it. Okay, so I can't use that shot. But what I can do is I can use the next shot, because she starts out of frame. So I'm going to use this shot. And right here, Morgan notices that she left her keys on the desk. Edit that down, in and out. Here's a super tight shot of the keys. I'm going to set my endpoint just before her hand enters the frame. Boom, she grabs them. Hand enters, hand leaves. And again, we're overlapping the action here. We cut back out to a wide shot, and I want my endpoint to start here. She gets all the way through the screen. And let's take a look at this sequence so far. This is more than 5 shots, but let's take a look at it. I'm going to make my program window bigger so you can kind of really see what we got. That's a good matching on action cut, or cutting on action. That's a really good cut on action shot there. And so these 3 shots right here are good. Morgan, start from here again. Morgan notices the keys. This is a medium shot. She notices the keys are on the desk. We go to a very tight shot. Okay, so we avoid the jump cut. Hand comes in, grabs it. We go back out, move the camera more than 30 degrees as she gets out and runs to the door. All right, so let's kind of redo this from this point here. So all of this stuff leading up to it, I'm going to get rid of. Delete. And then I got to get rid of this gap. All right, so let's cut this sequence from here. So 5 shots from here. And this is them overlapping, and they can continue this sequence on and on and on and on and on. So this shot here, she exits the frame. Let's go to the next shot. I believe it's a shot. Yeah, so we have her run into the door. Let me make these windows bigger. There we go. And we have, oh, this is going to be good here. Okay, so we're going to start this as she's running to the door. Boom, 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 boom. As she approaches the door, she's not at the door yet, so I got to pay attention to where her hands are. She's not at the door yet. Okay, so in the next shot here, she needs to not be at the door yet. So I'm going to scroll backwards, hit my in. Doors open. Then here. All right, so here's an overlapping action, right? So now this shot ends with the door open. Right? See, it's open, it's open, it's open. So the shot coming up next, the door should be open roughly that much. So I'm going to hit I and O. She's chasing her down for her keys. All right, so let's take a look at, excuse me, let's take a look at this sequence recut. And we've got a bunch of matching action here, cutting on action. Keys. She's up. She's running towards the door. Continues to run towards the door. That's seamless. That's seamless. That's seamless. And we could continue that sequence on and on and on. Okay. Let's say here. All right. Let's say right here. I'm going to zoom in on my timeline a little bit. Let's say I want to adjust the edit point of these 2 shots that I'm kind of clicking back and forth on. Okay, maybe I want to get out of this shot right here. There's a couple ways I can do that. I can hover on the edge of the clip, see how the arrow turns red, and now I can pull the end of the clip in. And what that does is it trims the clip, but it leaves a gap, so then I have to delete the gap. And so now I kind of have this kind of transition where like she's filling the screen. But then it creates this thing where like now she's too far ahead in this shot. So I need to trim the edge of this shot. In order to do that, I got to move all these over, and I could kind of trim here and see if that'll work. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It doesn't really work. It's not smooth. She kind of stops. She's moving, and then she's stopped. So I actually want to retrim this shot so I can grab the edge and I can trim it back in. And I can make, the point is here, I can make those adjustments in the timeline. That's a little bit smoother. It's still not great. Let me select these shots again. Maybe I need to adjust the out cue of this. Yeah, maybe let's let her exit the frame. So she leaves the frame. I go to black. So now I got to delete this, and I can move all these clips around. Yeah, that's a little bit smoother. I can move all these clips around in the timeline by highlighting them, moving them, trimming the edges, and things like that. The other thing I can do is, let's say I wanted to shorten. Let me zoom in here. Let's say I wanted to change the endpoint, the front end of this clip. And I'm going over with my arrow keys frame by frame. Now, I just showed you I can drag it in and delete the space. Okay, I can do that. Or I could hit Q. What Q is going to do is it is going to cut off the left side of the arrowhead here. Okay, so my playhead is this blue line. If I hit Q, it is going to cut off this little tiny chunk to the left, and it's going to automatically move everything over. So it does it in one move. Boom, Q. So now I've got this edit point changed. That's a little bit smoother. Let's say I wanted to do the same thing and change my out point. Let's say I wanted to get out here. Okay, so my playhead is here. I want to move this endpoint or this out point inward. I want to make this shot shorter by getting rid of this section to the right. I can trim it. I can delete the excess. All right. I also can hit W, and it's going to get rid of this little section between the playhead, the blue line, and it's going to get rid of it between the end of the clip. So if I hit W, it trims over there. And it backs everything up for you, so you can do it in one move instead of two. That's called a keyboard shortcut. I use the Q and the W a lot. There's also what we call the rolling edit tool, which is this shortcut here, and is this tool here, and I can kind of change the in and the out point as needed here. So I can move, and this is changing both the out point of the shot before and the in point of the shot next. And so in the program window, I'm actually looking at the last frame of shot A and the first frame of shot B. And I want it to be right here, right before her hands enter the frame. And so I'm going to let go. And I just moved that over one frame. I got to be careful though, because now I have this tool. My arrow looks really weird. I want my regular arrow, so I can hit my selection tool. That's up here. Or I can hit the letter V on my keyboard. If you hover over the different tools, you'll see that there's a letter in parentheses if there's a keyboard shortcut. And sometimes the rolling edit tool is a good one to use. So Q trims everything to the left of the playhead. W trims everything to the right of the playhead. You can grab the clips and trim from the edges like that using your mouse. There are several ways to trim clips within your timeline. Okay, so last week or 2 weeks ago, all we really did was set in and out points here, which we're still doing with the I&O, and we're dragging them down to a timeline. But you may decide that you want to change your edit points, you want to change your cuts, you want to change the edge of shot A and the edge of shot B, and there's a couple ways to do that. You can, drag and move clips around and rearrange. It takes a few more steps, but it's probably the most beginner friendly. You can use Q and W to trim. You can use your rolling edit tool. There's a bunch of different ways you can perform the same function. But the idea is that you should produce a product that you're happy with, where the shots cut on the action, and it is a seamless flow. And this right here is a pretty good example. This is student work. It's not perfect, but this is a pretty good example of a cutting on action sequence. So once I'm done, I now can go to the export button. I've got my file name is already done because I'm exporting the entire sequence. That's really important here. Make sure that when you're exporting your sequence, you don't have any in and out points in your sequence because now it's only going to export whatever is in and out. Okay, I want the whole sequence window highlighted in blue. I'm going to export the whole thing. So I go back to the export window. It's already named. I need to change the location. The last thing that I exported was for our show called the Rivalry Report. This is not that. So I click on the location link, I go to desktop, and I start navigating from left to right. Desktop, I'm working on cutting on action, and I'm exporting it, so it's going to go in my exports folder. I hit save, I hit export. It's going to go rather quickly, and once it's done, if I go to my Finder, desktop, cut on action, exports, it's right here. I can hit spacebar to play it. It's a 13-second sequence. And we're good to go there. All right, so that's a pretty good example of matching on action. Then what you're going to do is you would go to Canvas. You would go to our class. You're going to go to our first block. Whatever class you're in, you're going to find your folder. Whoops, I forgot I made one for me. Fabiano. And this assignment is called 5.1.3. So I new folder 5.1.3. Cut on action. Make that folder. Open it up. Go to my exports and drag it to Google Drive. And that's how you would turn it in.